Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of UPressPlay Sports. I'm your host and news editor, Richard Pereira. Joining me today is sports editor Cameron Priester and staff writer Zachary Watts. Hey guys, I know it's been a while since we last recorded an episode, but how are we guys doing?
Nope, can't really complain. We have a lot to catch up on all these sports, so I'd rather save my opinions
Hmm.
for when we get into it.
Yep, same here. I'm doing good. Um, got to talk about FAU. Unfortunately, got some NFL to talk about. Start of the NBA season. I'm ready.
Yeah, and throughout this past weeks, depending on the sport we'll be talking about today, it will be either good, either bad, and we're gonna have to start off with a good then bad moment for FAU football. On October 15, they beat Rice 17-14, and that game actually featured a return of defensive lineman Evan Anderson, who was out for the past several weeks due to a leg injury. But now that he's back, they arguably had their best defensive performance since the beginning of the season. Unfortunately, they couldn't keep up that momentum as they lost to a game-winning field goal against UTEP 24-21 on October 22nd. They now stand with a 3-5 record, and while their conference record is 2-2, they haven't given us a lot to be hopeful for. So, what are your guys' thoughts on how they played for the past two games?
Um, well, coming from the Rice game, we decided to schedule that from homecoming. And initially things didn't look so hot. We went down 14-0 early and, kind of started to question, like, what are we really doing? Like, gotta be able to turn things around. One of the things I'll say is penalties were also kind of a prevalent factor in that game again. I think we had like 9 for 65 yards, which you obviously don't want to see. But like you said, with the return of Evan Anderson, we had one of our best defensive performances we've seen all year, which is good. We ended up pulling that one out 17-14. But then moving on to the UTEP game, that one was just kind of a tough pill to swallow. It really hurt to see that one play out. I think they had that one touchdown where the guy blocked it with his helmet and it came off, decided not to pick it up so his teammate could return it back. Like that was kind of crazy. And then one of the things I did notice differently about that, which I liked, is we only had 3 penalties that game. So I thought we did better in that department. Um, but just one of those things where we have to be more consistent on both sides of the ball. Where there's some games where it seems like our defense is stepping up and doing a lot of things well. And then this is one of those cases where it looked like our offense was a little lackluster and needed to step up and just couldn't match the same energy that the defense was. Still some games left, so you'd want to see us finish out strong, but definitely a disappointing loss to UTEP there. I thought we definitely could have won that game, should have won that game, but not the result you want.
Yeah, it's just it's such another frustrating loss. Because especially with how well the defense is played, and a lot of it, like you said, has to do with Evan Anderson. He's been quiet, but you got to think like his presence on the D line and opposing offenses having to account for him it has something to do with that. The offense just has to be more consistent. You know, like you said, like the penalties. It seems like we talk about this every week. That shouldn't be, a problem this late in the season. Like problems like being undisciplined like that are just should have been figured out a long time ago. Which to be fair, they did clean up a little bit against UTEP. It just they have to win on the road, and it's just disappointing. And it's why we're having some of these conversations about job security and stuff. But hopefully they can. There's still stuff to play for. Bowl contention isn't completely out. They'd have to really right the ship now, but yeah, it's just not looking good.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Cameron, this is a team that has aspirations to appear at the very least in a bowl game, and all they need is 6 wins. And right now, at this point in the season, 8 games have passed, and they only have 3, and they only have 4 games remaining. And with the rest of the schedule looking tough, there's no way you can underestimate this type of schedule. It's just not going to be an easy road for FAU, and the offense, I just really need N'Kosi Perry to get back to where he was at the beginning of the season, because right now, like, He's throwing between like 100 to less than 200 yards in the past 2 games, but I don't think that's going to cut it. Like he's really got to step up and really pass the ball to LaJohntay West or Jamal Edgerrin, and on occasion Jaquan Burton. Um, he's really got to take advantage of his receiving squad, and he just really needs to step up with his passes and to make those timely passes and not to fall for what the opposing defense has to offer him.
And to your point, Richard, I think a lot of that has to do with kind of his confidence, because at the beginning of the season, like everybody was kind of talking about how much more poised he looks and just confident with where he's going with the ball. And over these last couple of games, that seemed to kind of get away from him a little bit, and he's kind of reverted back to previous season form where he just looks a little more like timid, pushing the ball downfield, and a couple of bad games will do that to you, but he's kind of just got to regain that confidence in himself. And because we've seen like the peak of his performance, like at the beginning of the season, we've seen what he can do. He's just got to find a way to kind of revert back to that.
Yeah, and he has a chance to do that going against UAB for Halloween weekend on Saturday, October 29. FAU thinks this will be the biggest Halloween party in Boca Raton. Hopefully, these losses don't make it the smallest Halloween party in Boca Raton. They will play Saturday, October 29 at 7 p.m. And UAB has a 4-3 record at the moment. And what are your guys' thoughts heading into this matchup for FAU?
Well, UAB has kind of proven themselves to be one of the better teams in Conference USA. So it's definitely not going to be an easy matchup. But I don't know. Like looking at our schedule this year, we've played a lot of quality opponents that I felt like before going into the game, I hadn't favored us, and we still played it close. Like that Purdue game where we lost, I felt like we should have won that one. The Rice game, I thought they had played well in conference up to that point. So, I mean, as much of a challenge as UAB seems, it's not like out of our grasp, or it's not something that we've totally like out of reach, I guess. I mean, Evan Anderson has continued to ball out in his return. I think he had 7 tackles last game, so he's been playing well. You know, the defense continues to make plays in an attempt to win the turnover battle. One of the things I'd like to see more is our like lead backs, like McCormick, get a little bit more carries, try to see if he can get his stride. I think he only had 65 rushing yards last game. I definitely think he can build on that. But that's all about just not falling behind early. You know, it's making contests close later in the games. It's able to completely utilize like every bit of your offense. I think we seem to get a little bit one-dimensional at times, which kind of hurts us. But you know, if we can just finally, like Cameron touched on earlier, like bear down in these last 4 games, I really could see us obtaining some bowl eligibility, and you know, having something to play for, especially this late in the season.
Yeah, I think he kind of hit the nail on the head a little bit. Can't be so one-dimensional on offense. You know, you have so many playmakers, utilize them and make N'Kosi Perry's job a lot easier. Get him easy read plays, get him easy layup throws to his receivers, and kind of let them do the work for him. I think I really like to see them get Johnny Ford the ball a lot. He had his injuries that kind of slowed him down towards the beginning of the season. And before heading into the UTEP game, Brent Dearman, the offensive coordinator, said he wanted to try to get him at least 10 to 15 touches, which I like the sound of. He's really good running routes out of the backfield. But like I said, it's easy layup throws for Cozy. Get his confidence up. I'd like to see them try to do that more. Try to just get the offense going early, because you're not going to win games scoring 14, 21 points a game. And in effect, that will help out your defense, because they've been playing really well. And if the offense can figure it out, some of these games that we've lost in the past couple of weeks could be wins. So I just like to see the offense just be a little bit more efficient. Also, what do we think about the black uniforms? I don't know.
They're nice. They're nice. I like it. But yeah,
Mhm.
as far as I'm certain, with how the season has gone down, no matter what happens in the game against UAB, we'll either get a trick or treat from FAU. And moving on from FAU football, we go on to men's soccer, and they suffered a 3-game losing streak. They currently have a record of 3-8-3, 2-3-2 in conference play, and they had defeats. A disappointing 1-0 defeat to Temple, who is the bottom in the American Athletic Conference. The 2-1 loss to Florida Gulf Coast, which was their last game against non-conference opponents, and a recent 2-0 defeat to Memphis, who is otherwise a very solid squad. So with these struggles, what do we think of this team's position in the standings at the moment? So considering that they still have a chance at qualifying for the tournament, the conference tournament, but with these losses, it's not really helping them at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's just increasingly tough. I mean, when you go into a slump, especially like the losing streak that we've had, even though we've dropped our last 3, we haven't picked up a win in our last 5. I know we had that draw against 13 ranked Charlotte,
Yep.
but I mean, it doesn't really help you that much, and our schedule doesn't necessarily get any easier. We play 20 ranked SMU in this upcoming week, which will be our senior night, which I thought was pretty interesting. But in terms of the FGCU game, it's just kind of one of those things where it doesn't really fall your way. I mean, we had shots on goal, we had 8, they had 4. Seemed like we won in that regard. In terms of fouls, which I thought was a big issue for us all year long. FGCU had 14 in that game, and we only had 4. So we were playing a lot cleaner than them, but we weren't able to capitalize when we needed to. We went down really early in the 3rd minute, finally evened it up with I think like 7, 8 minutes left to go in the game, and then just FGCU was able to capitalize literally last second goal to pull that one out. So that really kills your morale moving forward. And then kind of in that Memphis game, we really nothing really going for us offensively at all. And that both goals for Memphis came in the second half. So we did play good in the first half, but in the second half, that penalty kick really doesn't help. Fouls in this one seem to be a big issue. Our 12 to their 11, not really something you want to see. And I think just to kind of touch back up on that FGCU game, I think one of their goals also came off a set piece, free kick, which obviously I've said one of our biggest issues this year is we've been conceding way too many goals off of set pieces. I don't know whether it's our positioning. I don't know whether teams just have it drawn up a little bit better than us, but we seem to get beat there pretty commonly, which I don't really like to see. But, it doesn't mean you can give up. Like we said, I think we're 1 spot out of a playoff spot. So you're definitely going to have to bear down with these remaining games. And SMU definitely doesn't leave you an easy challenge. But I think with this SMU game, you kind of get a preview of what the playoffs are going to be like. So if you really want to make the playoffs, you're going to have to play your best soccer up to this point. So I guess we'll kind of see where we stand if we want to make playoffs or not, and if we really have a chance to make a deep run. We'll kind of see what we have within this game.
Yeah, it's just not the time of the season that you really want to like start to slump. And those aren't terrible opponents you're playing. In fact, Memphis is actually really good. But you'd like to see them playing their best soccer at this point in the season. And they're just not. But as like you said, the season's not out. But SMU is a good, very good opponent. And right now we're I think 0-3 in ranked matchups. So hopefully, they can kind of clean up the set pieces, like you said, because it's not out in like a real postseason run isn't kind of like out of the picture just yet. So if they can turn it around, that'd be exciting. It's just tough. You'd like to see them be playing better right now, but hopefully they can clean it up against SMU.
Well, when it comes to nationally ranked matchups, FAU has 1 draw and 2 losses. The only draw coming against Charlotte, who are ranked number 13 at the time. And with SMU being a very good matchup, they're pretty much one of the best teams in the conference. It's definitely a tough matchup for FAU to handle. And with that being tonight, including World Cup night, which is definitely interesting to check out. Like, what are they going to do with that? Maybe go out in a national team jerseys or just soccer jerseys in general. I definitely want to see what they do with that. On Friday, October 28th, 7 p.m., FE will take on SMU on that day, and hopefully they bounce back with a very good win against a very solid nationally ranked squad. Moving on from men's soccer, we head on to women's soccer, and we got more brighter news. They clinched a spot in the Conference USA tournament with a 3-0 victory over Middle Tennessee this past Sunday. And even though they had disappointing defeats to West Kentucky and Louisiana Tech, being a 1-0 defeat and a 2-1 loss, they did bounce back very well to clinch what was a very crucial spot in the Conference USA tournament. And with them having one game left against FIU this Wednesday, October 26th at 7 p.m., a home game no less, what do you guys think of how women's soccer looks heading into the postseason?
I think it sets up pretty nicely. I mean, like you said, we were able to clinch that spot, which is huge for us. In terms of that Western Kentucky game, I thought that was just kind of like a brush off game. Western Kentucky only had one shot on goal the entire time, and their goal came off a deflection. So, I mean, it really wasn't like we made too many mistakes. We just, again, weren't able to capitalize in situations where I thought we could have. And, it was an away game. So, playing away is always tough, especially in conference. Then you go in that Louisiana Tech game, not the result you want. But the fact that they're able to bounce back against Middle Tennessee, pick up a 3-0 win, that's huge. But I think the biggest thing to mark is not only do you clinch, but then we turn around and immediately play our rivals, FIU, to close out the year. That's kind of ideal what you want going into playoffs. Because if you're able to win that one, that's a huge confidence boost. It's able to get your kind of your head screwed on right. And because you have all that pent up emotion from beating your rivals, you're able to kind of turn around and say, all right, well, let's use that for momentum going into the playoffs. Let's see what we can do now. I'm trying to look through the ranked opponents, not really seeing much, but outside of that, we've played well. We've played pretty consistent all year, I'd say. Offensively, I think we've done a great job. There's some spots defensively I think we need to clean up because from what I'm noticing, other teams aren't getting a ton of offensive output in terms of shots on goal, but they're able to capitalize on them most of the time. Whereas, we'll have a ton of shots on goal. We're just not able to capitalize too much. But, short and sweet, FIU's coming up. Huge game for us. We're already riding a little bit of momentum. Already happy that we're able to clinch. But I guess as the cliche goes, job's not finished. So we definitely have more to prove.
Right, like you said, just continue to just ride this good momentum. That was like very good win they're coming off of against Middle Tennessee. Keeping the clean sheet on defense and played really well in the second half. 8 shots compared to their 0. That's kind of like how you'd like them to play, like clean in the second half. That's just like you said, the good juju that you want. I just hopefully they can keep this going against FIU. You don't want to kind of mess up a good thing heading on the end of the season, heading into the tournament. But it leaves a lot to be confident heading into the postseason. They're playing really well.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully they end the regular season with a very solid win against the in-state rival in FIU. So good luck to them. And hopefully we have a good tournament this year from women's soccer. And hopefully the other sports we talked about do win their games and qualify for their crucial postseason games. And moving on from FAU sports, we head on to national sports and we start off with the NFL. Plenty of things happened in the NFL this past week. Tua Tagovailoa finally made his return from concussion protocol for the Dolphins, helping them get an important victory against the Pittsburgh Steelers, which helped them snap a 3-game losing streak after they started the season 3-0. The Philadelphia Eagles remain undefeated. The Dallas Cowboys just got Dak Prescott back after having Cooper Rush in cruise control for the past couple of weeks. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Bucks are struggling right now. And the Patriots have an interesting quarterback dilemma with Mac Jones and Bailey Zapp, especially after a disappointing defeat to the Chicago Bears this past Monday. So what are your guys' thoughts on what happened throughout this past week of NFL football?
I mean, in terms of old QBs, I think Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady were kind of seeing the decline just a little bit, but I also think that's not due in part to their playing ability. I just think like the teams that they have around them just aren't really getting things done. From the Bucs standpoint, I really just think because they force Arians out, their offensive play calling abilities have absolutely diminished. They have almost zero red zone capability up to this point. That's kind of sad to see. In terms of the New England situation with quarterbacks, I kind of feel for Mac Jones because it felt like he was on a extremely short lease considering how well he's done last year. And another thing that kind of bothers me is I feel like the play calling is extremely different when Zappy's in the game. I just feel like he is not getting the same kind of play calls. I don't know why that is. I don't know whether they trust Zappy to make certain throws as compared to Mac, which I don't know what would have earned them that. But I mean, you literally had fans chanting for Bailey to come into the game after like one turnover, and I was like, I mean, I guess, but it kind of hurt me. And then to see Bailey literally come out and immediately take the lead 14-10, but then ended up losing the game pretty badly. I mean, it just seemed like Chicago had made some of the better adjustments. What I will say for Chicago side of things, though, and I'll keep this short, they are finally utilizing Justin Fields' legs as they're supposed to. I thought that was one of the biggest things they'd been missing out of all year. Make teams commit to that backfield of Fields, Khalil Herbert, and David Montgomery. Make teams load the box, and then you're able to beat them with play action passes. Allow Fields to get some easy reads over the middle. That's kind of how you need to win your games. And I feel like they did that extremely well against the Patriots. But yeah, that's kind of all I really have for the NFL side of things.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you about the quarterback situation in New England. I didn't necessarily kind of agree with that. Coming off of missing 3 weeks, and that was a really ugly interception Mac kind of threw yesterday, but I just thought that was more of like Belichick kind of like just saying like this is what I'm gonna do and just trying to be right with his move. But besides that, it was just awesome to see the Bears win. I've said on here before that like like the season's chopped and like let's look at 2023, but it's nice to see them win. Like he said, they're utilizing his legs more, which in turn he just looks more comfortable back there when he's actually going through progressions. He's not just focusing on key reads or keying on his first read, which is what you want to see. Um, I also this interesting. Like you said, I thought like, they kind of declined. I don't think it also is. I don't like Aaron Rodgers very much as a Bears fan, but that receiving core is kind of really brutal. He's doesn't really have like a guy you would on there on his receiving core that you'd think is like a wide receiver one. Um, so yeah, I don't know how they're gonna look the rest of the season. Um, yeah, the Bucks that was a brutal loss for them. Brady just looked frustrated out there. I'm not sure. That division is interesting. I'm not sure how that's gonna end up. We'll see.
Yeah, that Tampa Bay game where Mike Evans dropped what was supposed to be a touchdown pass, like a pass downfield to him, and he dropped it like that. That was not good to see, and it's definitely wasn't good to see Tampa Bay get blown out like that by Carolina, 21-3. That's not a good look at all. And I do want to look at the more surprising teams, especially the Giants and the Jets, who have a 6-1 record and a 5-2 record. New York teams are balling out today, it seems.
Yeah, it's so funny to me because you look at the Giants record at 6-1 now, and if you were to ask anyone like, "Oh, do you think the Giants have any chance of making like a deep playoff run?" 90% of people would say absolutely not. Like there is just not a lot of faith. What I will say is the lock though is Brian Daboll as coach of the year. I mean for what he's done with the staff that he has. First, I just want to say Daniel Jones has been better than advertised. He's done exactly what he's needed to do. I'm not going to say he's gone out there and like woed anyone with the extreme playmaking ability, but Saquon's fully healthy. We've seen some receivers emerge and Wandale Robinson that have been playing pretty well out there. The Giants have just been playing winning football, and that's all you can really ask from your guys. It's not about how you get it done. It's just that the fact whether or not you get it or done. That's really all that matters in this case. So I'm extremely surprised in that sense. As for the other New York teams, the Jets sitting at 5-2. I kind of think they're getting away with some easy scheduling. That's just on me. And as for the Bills, I think they're one of the best teams in football. One thing I want to say though is that I feel like not a lot of people are bringing up, but people are subtly acknowledging Geno Smith and the Seahawks are playing extremely well for some reason. I don't know why. I guess Pete Carroll just knew Russell Wilson was diminishing for some reason. I don't think his deep ball is there anymore, which kind of sucks to see because, Bronco literally cleared house to bring in $250 million QB and you're just not getting it done. So that's tough to see. But, I mean, yeah, shout out Geno Smith, man. I'm loving what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Richard, to your question about the New York teams, I think the Giants are kind of just there. Like you said, it's just great coaching. And not only Daniel Jones is playing kind of just clean. He's playing game managing football, and which leads to not a lot of many mistakes. He's hitting those open passes. He's like hitting the check down whenever he needs to, and that kind of opens up spots for his athleticism, which I think people don't give him enough credit for. In the game against the Bears, he was lighting our defense up on like the bootleg. We couldn't stop it. He probably had like 3 or 4 first down runs just on that play alone. That's something I don't think people give him enough credit for. He's playing good football, and when you don't make a lot of mistakes, you win games. So, and the Jets, I think that's just, I think Wilson's kind of getting bailed out a little bit. But that's kind of what happens, I think, when you get a young quarterback, good receiving weapons and a, competent O-line, hoping like the Bears will take notice, do something about theirs. But I think that they're just playing clean football, and that's when you win. That's when you win.
Yeah, and gotta give credit to where it's due for them. Like after suffering for how long they've had for the past couple of years, especially the Jets, it's definitely a great sight to see seeing both of them, in fact, have very good winning records and only having 1 or 2 losses at this point of the season. So hopefully they keep that up. And moving on from the NFL, we have our last topic of the day, the NBA. So far, we're 1 week into the NBA season, seeing some very, very good talent so far. Zion is looking very good to start the season. Paolo Banchero is settling in very nicely for the Orlando Magic, even though they're winless at 0-4. The Knicks are looking not too bad with Jalen Brunson leading the way. They recently won against Orlando last night. Cleveland is looking solid with Donovan Mitchell, who is on a torching start, scoring over 30 points a night, which is crazy. And as we look at the West, the Lakers with an 0-3 record. I will say this about the Lakers. They have been very fun for me to watch. They have been very fun. I've been enjoying their games. Despite their shooting struggles on offense, they have been looking pretty solid defensively. And I like the young talent that they have on the bench. And I like Lonnie Walker's speed and athleticism, which he definitely helps them out there. But Russell Westbrook, especially that Blazers game where Damian Lillard was just being Damian Lillard, going clutch mode, going crazy as he always does with his 3-point shooting ability. And Russell Westbrook takes a terribly timed mid-range shot with a lot of time on the shot clock in like the last 30 seconds of the game. So what are we thinking with the Lakers at the moment?
I mean, not only was it a terrible decision for the shot, but the fact that Portland purposely switched Nurkic on him, like you're literally putting a big man on a point guard and completely giving up any type of shot, didn't contest it at all. They were like, hey, if anyone's going to beat us, it's surely going to be you. Like, we don't care. And they ended up being right. I think one of the big things this year, if you want to look at the Blazers, they're 4-0. I think another team out west has really surprised me is the Jazz up to this point. Danny Ainge kind of suffering from success because, considering how many players he shipped out with Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, you'd think like, oh, we're in rebuild mode. And then he suddenly made a playoff contending team out of a bunch of just role players.
I think
And he
this
just
gives
did
him a chance to sell, though. I think this gives him a chance to sell players since their high value is looking a lot higher than it was before.
I think he should trade for Westbrook. If he truly wants to embrace the tank mode, please bring in Westbrook. I think that is the smartest thing you can do. Please, I'm begging. I will do anything just to not have to watch LeBron's career dwindle down like this. Because the fact that there are so many cameras on you in LA, and every time Russ does something like, or anyone on the team for that matter, does anything remotely poorly, they immediately just cut to LeBron's like facial expression, and he just looks done. He just like, I'd rather retire now. Obviously he's gonna keep playing until his son's in the league, but I mean, the NBA is getting so frustrating. I mean, the Celtics are good. I mean, it's obviously Jason Tatum's MVP season, in my opinion, but that's coming from a biased Celtics fan. So I'm going to have to refrain from hyping them up too much at this point in time. But I digress.
Yeah, this the kind of the shooting in Los Angeles is kind of just brutal. Um, I'm more surprised though by the Blazers' hot start. I kind of expected Damian Lillard to, I want to say like regress, but just kind of not return to that like that mode we know he's in, like game time, like we always say. Um, but he looks great. And so does the entire team starting off 4-0. Another thing I'm kind of surprised by the Heat's slow start. Um, their offseason wasn't as it was kind of quiet. There was all the like Donovan Mitchell rumors. It wasn't anything too crazy really happened, but I think they'll figure it out. The Heat are like known as one of the like best coach teams. You know what Eric Spoelstra is gonna do, and they develop talent better than almost any organization in sports. So I think they'll get on the right track as the season progresses.
Yeah, and I agree. The start of their season wasn't what they expected, but they just happened to face DeMar DeRozan on a very good day.
It's on a tear right now.
Yeah, even though the Bulls have a 2-2 record, I'm sure they'll be fine for the moment. And the Wizards having a 2-1 record, but I don't think that will last very long. Charlotte, same as well. I don't think they'll be in the top 3 in the East a few weeks from now. No way, no way. I don't think that's gonna happen at all. But yeah, the Hawks, who had one of the more interesting off seasons by getting DeJounte Murray, they currently have a 2-1 record with Trae Young and Murray as their starting backcourt. So it's definitely an interesting start for them, and I think they would be one of the more interesting teams to watch, as far as I'm certain.
Yeah.
And of course the Blazers 4-0, the Grizzlies 3-1. Okay, pretty good start. And the Spurs, who we thought would be in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes, they currently have a 3-1 record. And while I don't think they stay close to the top of the West, like a month from now, it's definitely a very surprising start for them.
What are our thoughts on the Nets and their start?
The Nets 1-2. Ben Simmons, for some reason, decided to foul out in 2 of those 3 games.
He got played. He got played on that. That was hilarious to see.
What is up with officiating for the most part? Like, I get it's in the rules.
I don't get
it. I understand like check fouls are a thing, but I am so against it. Like, what? It's almost getting impossible to actually defend some of these guys in the NBA because if you look at the skill set, not only from a shooting perspective, but from a playmaking standpoint, also from a finishing standpoint, like these guys' talent levels are off the charts, and it feels like we've instead of improving evenly, like as offensive improved, you'd see some defensive improvements as well to be able to kind of counterbalance these things. It seems the NBA is just completely embraced that this is going to be an offensive league. It's almost as if defense means nothing at this point. We look at some of the more talented defensive teams in the league, such as the Celtics. They just gave up 120 points to the Bulls, and that's not saying they're not going to give up over 100 points during given nights. But if you're considered one of the best defensive teams in the league, you're going to consistently have dominant defensive performances, and it just doesn't seem like it's even an option at this point with how check fouls are, how easy play. I mean, I know they've kind of battled back a little bit from a flopping standpoint, but even so, it's not as if players aren't getting away with it. I mean, we saw Pat Bev kind of get called out for flopping the other night, acting like he got hit by a truck. But that's like his situation. It's kind of annoying to watch because it's not so much as like, oh, these teams are playing better defenses to stop teams. It's just more like we got to hope that certain star players on these offensive minded teams aren't going to have their best scoring output tonight. And I don't like counting on that going into games because I don't think it's fair. I don't think it sets up for the best viewable basketball from a fan's experience. But then again, I'm in a position where like the only thing I can do is complain because I don't really know how I'd fix it. I'd want to take the hand checking out. That's one of the fixes I'd recommend. But other than that, I don't really have much to say in terms of how to fix it. I just wish I could see it change.
Yeah, the general trend is there. Not only in basketball, it seems like in all of sports, it's like kind of leaning, just kind of. I don't want to say softer because that's not the right word, but it's kind of what it is, like softer. Like, but like you said, there's no one like fix for it because I feel like if they alter the rules to make it more, players are so good, like you said, they'll find a way to exploit this anyway. So I'm not sure, but like you said, it really is getting out of hand to almost where you can't play defense. And we like high scoring games, but like we also want to see defense. We don't need to see 150-point games every single night. So hopefully they can, find a way to balance it out. But I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
Yeah, and I definitely would agree with you guys. I do love seeing defense being played a game in and game out. So hopefully they loosen up on those BS fouls where it just comes out of nowhere and it's like, you don't even see the foul at all. They just called it. So hopefully that we don't see that very often as the season winds down.
Mm-hmm.
With that, that'll be it for this episode of UPressPlay Sports. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. Click the bell to keep up with notifications from us. Also, be sure to go on upressonline.com to keep up with news, sports, and more content alike. To follow us on Twitter, it's for me, at Rich26Pereira, for Cameron, at PrehistorCameron, and for Zach, at ZachWatts1_. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.